Welcome into the latest episode of the 5 Reasons Podcast. I'm Ethan Skolnick here, as always, with Chris Whittingham. Now that you have found us, make sure that you hit the subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcast provider, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, CastBox, Podbean, or any of the others. That way you'll get all of our old episodes as well as all of our new episodes as soon as they post. Also, check out the other 12 podcasts in our network. That, of course, includes 3 Yards Per Carry. They've been first in the Tannehill News pretty much all of the last 2 weeks. Also, Miami Heat Beat, Swings and Mishes, which is hosted by Craig Fish. I know Cliff is familiar with Craig. Also, Goldie on Ice, which is hosted by Steve Goldstein, and Fish Tank, which is hosted by OJ McDuffie, as well as Seth Levitt. And they went away from form this week. Instead of a football episode, they spent an hour with Andre Dawson. So make sure you check out that episode on Fish Tank this week with Andre talking about growing up in Miami and obviously his Hall of Fame career. But today we're going to do a little bit more baseball on the pod. We're going to welcome in an old friend. You can find him on MLB Network. You also can find him on Sportsnet, where he is a Toronto Blue Jays analyst. Of course, he spent some very productive years with the Marlins, and he's also obviously one of those old Montreal Expos from all those teams that would have won championships probably if they'd stuck together, and that is Cliff Floyd. Cliff, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Let's start with the series because we're right in the middle of this thing. As we're taping, it's right after Game 1. I think this is a series that a lot of people wanted to see. Obviously, you got 2 big market teams, a lot of stars on the 2 teams. I just want to go through the 2 teams a little bit with you before we kind of move to what's happened in the series, because what has surprised me this year about the Dodgers is that they made it here with almost an entirely new lineup than they had last year. Obviously, they had an injury at short. They brought in Machado, but they've made changes in a bunch of other places. And I'm just curious from your perspective as far as how they've gotten here this year. Has it surprised you they've been able to overcome the slow start, the injuries, and everything else?
Well, absolutely. I think when you look at how this game is played every day, you don't typically see 2 lineups as the Dodgers have featured. And I think sometimes it helps you, I think, as an organization when you can have the players, but you have to have the players that the Dodgers have to go out there and be able to do what they've been doing. I mean, you look at last night lineup, David Freese is in there, Brian Dozier's in there, no Puig, no Muncy, no Bellinger. So when you have 2 lineups, obviously everybody has to stay on course and pretty much be accountable, but it's tough. And then, to answer your question directly, yes, it's very surprising to see where they are because of, how hard it is to get guys to platoon and be ready when you're everyday players. Brian Dozier, everyday player. Cody Bellinger, well, he's an everyday player. Jock Peterson, these are everyday players. Puig, and you can go down that list. And it's hard to get guys to consistently buy in to sitting there waiting for opportunity to play when their mindset is, I should be in there every day.
In terms of Game 1, I was fascinated by all the Clayton Kershaw conversation afterwards, that it's another World Series start and one where he only lasts 4 innings. And just the idea that even still in 2018, we're discussing the idea of players being different in the regular season versus the postseason. I kind of thought that numbers kind of, and analytics kind of changed that conversation, but it's a very old school kind of conversation. Based on your playing career, do you think that players can be different in the regular season and the postseason, and do you believe Clayton Kershaw to be one of them?
Yes, I do. I just look at this whole dynamic and how the game has evolved, and we have starting pitching going 4 innings. I mean, star pitchers. The matchup yesterday was a heavyweight. That was it. Chris Sale, Kershaw, like that. That's supposed to be, in my eyes, in my mind, a 2-1 game, and they're fighting. Then a bullpen piece come in. It's not the case anymore. I think we're having, regular season guys that be great, and then the postseason comes, and then it's how do I win today? How do I get my guy to go 4 innings? I think if you're Alex Cora, you're probably only asking David Price to go 4 innings tonight, 5 innings, and to see. And look, I know the conditions are bad, and I'm not making excuses for anybody because I've been in those shoes. I've been in bad weather and so on and so forth. Chris Sale left that game last night to a standing ovation. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, he's winning the game, but this is Chris Sale. This is one of the dominant pitchers in our game. This is Clayton Kershaw. This is the first ballot Hall of Famer type cat, and it's watching guys consistently, and whether he's getting squeezed or not. Talking about Chris Sale. Still 91 pitches through 4 innings. Clayton Kershaw is battling. We're talking about, his fastball after the game not being what it used to be to get guys out consistently. I don't know if these guys are not going to give me the quality, and we're talking about, Nathan Eovaldi from the Red Sox being your best pitcher in the post. I mean, how do you stay true to your guy? For me, it's about getting a dub. And if Nathan Eovaldi is that guy, I'm going with him. Like if I was managing, maybe I'll never get that opportunity. You can't question me if I started Nathan yesterday as opposed to Chris Sale, or I started Nathan opposed to David Price. I just feel totally different about how these managers go about the business. And look, Alex Cora has been tremendous. I mean, he's been outstanding through this postseason. I mean, he's been outstanding through the whole season. I just think sometimes we fall into, well, he's the best guy for us right now, and in my eyes, it might not be the case.
Cliff, why has this happened? Well, why? I mean, because it's not. This hasn't been going on that long. Like, I mean, if you go back 10 years,
it's like 2 years.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm going back 15 years. So I'm dating myself a little bit, but I mean, if you look at the 2003, World Series, I mean, Jack McKeon expected Josh Beckett to go 9 innings on 2 days rest.
Yes.
Now, I mean, we're all of a sudden, like you said, it's like you're in the third and we're watching pitch counts and wondering who's getting up in the pen. So. Is this coming from the sort of the analytics general managers? Is this coming from ownership that don't want to burn out pitchers? Is this coming from managers who are kind of, afraid, like you said, of losing one game and what it's ultimately going to mean? But I mean, the game doesn't even look the same to me anymore. Like it's totally different. And like Chris said, it's a recent. Is it 2 years, 3 years? I mean, I feel like we've gotten. I mean, 5 is supposed to be what you need to win a game, and it's like that's not even. I mean. Pitchers, like you said, star pitchers aren't even getting there anymore.
No, I mean, and this is the elite of the elite pitchers. These are not like the third stars. Rick Porcello is. I mean, when you start talking about, let's forget the money. Talk about direct to y'all to your question. It started recently because of the bullpen situation that started in Cleveland, and when that came on the scene. It was like, wait a minute, how do we get longevity out of our starters and then build these bullpen pieces? Now, I don't think you want, as an owner, your star pitcher in the bullpen. I don't think you want to see David Price or Rick Porcello, who you gave a ton of money to, or Clayton Kershaw closing out game 7 to get you to the postseason. To get you to the World Series anytime. But this is what we're seeing. This is a trend we're having, come crunch time, come October.
If Kershaw can't, can anyone? Like, is there a pitcher? I mean, I guess Verlander did it a lot in this postseason, but like,
a couple years ago, we was talking about Justin Verlander needs to do something, right? And all of a sudden, he gets to Houston and he figured out, he's like, oh snap, this is maybe he was saving his bullets when he was in the. I don't know, but Justin Verlander now is the guy. Like when you look at Justin Verlander and what he brings to the table. I look at him as going 6-7 innings for sure, as opposed to anybody else in the game. Right now, he has to be the top guy in our game as far as going out there of the elite and giving you a good 6-7 innings and feeling comfortable about it.
Talking to Cliff Floyd here. I want to switch to Boston with you for a little bit because I found them to be interesting this year. Because I think when the Yankees got Stanton and sort of threw him on top of Judge and Sanchez and everybody else in that lineup, I think the consensus was that the Yankees were going to sort of run away with that division, even though Boston appeared to have better pitching on paper. When you look at the Red Sox going forward, they've got a lot of good young players at this point, starting in the outfield. How sustainable is this for the Red Sox going forward? If they can win this series, can this be a run for them? Or with Houston in the American League, is it going to be challenging for them to kind of build that up consistently?
Well, it's definitely going to be challenging because obviously I believe Houston will be back in this thing. It's unfortunate that you come down the stretch and you don't have healthy players. I just think that they've done a really good job talking about Houston as far as building a rotation. You need health, and not having the horses to go out there and battle. You're probably not going to win it each and every year. But I think it's very hard to repeat. I think Boston has done a really good job. Dave Dombrowski has literally, he's found diamond and rough type players. Steve Pierce, he got him at the right time from Toronto. When you look at Nathan Eovaldi, got him at the right time. He was pitching well. So all these pieces have to come together. But I think when you can go out there and fill the biggest void that you have, when you look at going out there and bringing in JD Martinez, when everybody else looked at their roster and goes, you mean tell me JD Martinez does not fit? Yeah, he fit in every team, and he's going to make every team better. But the glaring hole is when Big Papi left, and you replace him with JD Martinez. It made everybody's job easier. You were able to keep Mookie Betts in the leadoff spot, and then you have a true, and I hate using the word, he's a ball player, but Andrew Benintendi is everything you want. So you have defense, you have starting pitching that you can figure out throughout the season. You have guys that you bring on at some point. You find Ryan Braziers of the world. You find Matt Barnes do what he's doing, and you just roll. But when you have the luxury of having runs on the board and you can give up a few runs, the pitching don't seem to be a problem. And I think that's what they figured out. They go, look, we can score enough. We're going to put pressure on this team offensively, and our pitching is going to be able to sustain giving up 4 or 5 runs a game. And I think it's going to be something that they can, they can have for a while. When you talk about dynasties and talk about things like that, I think you can go either or. It's great to always have both offense and defense and pitching. But I think when you look at what the Red Sox are today, I mean, this offense is a problem. It is dangerous. It's long, and you make any mistake. David Freese made one mistake. He didn't catch that ball from Mookie Betts, and look what happened in the first inning yesterday.
Wanted to ask about, so I'm a Marlins fan who's obviously mainly dialing into the playoffs because obviously the Marlins aren't a tremendous team at the moment, although we'll get to the moves that they've made already in this offseason. But one of the things that's been kind of weird for me is watching Anibal Sanchez start playoff games, watching Nathan Eovaldi be like one of the 5 most important pitchers in the World Series, and I'm like, hang on a second, these are guys that like the Marlins didn't have use for years ago. How did those guys, and is this just something that I noticed because I'm here, or is this something that generally happens around the league where maybe a team didn't have regard for someone and he can contribute elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it's just something that we have come to realize down in South Florida that, I mean, we've let some players leave our team, right? Our organization. Mm-hmm. I mean, it goes back to when we won the World Series in '97. Think about all the players that's left, that organization. And I think as you move forward, and I've had a chance to talk to DJ a little bit. I think when you have the situation with Jose Fernandez, it sets you back, man. And I don't know how far, because I believe he was that unbelievable of a pitcher. And then you don't have the other players that come along that you thought, Adam Conley's and so on and so forth. And I know you mentioned Anibal, I know you mentioned a lot of different names. But I think when you have a team that does not win, and then you switch ownership, and possibly you have to figure out a way to save some money and so on and so forth. I just think losing certain players, unfortunately, the situation with Jose Fernandez sets you back as far as the organization. You're now hoping that what you get back in return for these players that you traded, the whole outfield, pan out to turn this thing around quickly. It is unfortunate. I believe you build, and I believe if you own a team, you enjoy what you have on that field and you add to it. We had the best outfield in the game. I think for me, if I had $1 billion and I was owning the team, I'm adding to that. I'm not subtracting. I'm not figuring out a way to put $400 million in my pocket to make this make sense. That's why I'm probably not owner, because I would probably spend too much, and I would probably put my team in bad predicaments. I don't think it's great to throw good money at bad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you have something that you build off of to make up for what you lost. And I thought, it was very hard to see those players leave. And it's been very hard to see the players that have left the organization leave, because I believe you can build something of substance down there in South Florida, and you have everything that you need to do it with. You have a new stadium, you have you have all these things. Let's fill the stadium up and keep these people happy that's coming to the ballpark. And look, you just made a great international move. That was outstanding with the brothers from Cuba. That's great. But I still believe that what you've done with the trades, they have to pan out, or you're going to be down where we've been this year and the last couple for years to come, because it's just hard to compete with players that are not polished and ready to be big leaguers every day.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that in a second, particularly Yelich, conversation I want to have with you. But there was one thing I wanted to ask, because you spent a good chunk of your prime here. I mean, basically between age 24 and 29, you were here. And I mean, you had, a 90 RBI season, a 91 RBI season, 103 RBIs. I mean, 22, 31, 28 home runs. And so how frustrating was that for you? Because again, you were, 97, you were familiar with that feeling, right? And then,
right.
And then 98, they break the thing down. What is it like? Because I'm thinking of JT Realmuto right now, right? So he's the best player on the team at the moment. Okay, he's the one who's left, and he could have been traded at the deadline last year. Clearly, Washington was interested, Houston. There were teams that might have made a bid for him. And now there's a question about whether he's going to be here going forward or he's somebody that you should flip. But and he's entering his prime. Now, when you're a player in your prime playing for a team that doesn't have hope, what is that like when you're doing that year after year?
Well, it's not fun. It's very tough to keep the competitive edge that you need to be consistently good every day. It's very hard because he's very important for the growth of the squad. I mean, your catcher is involved in everything. I mean, he's making your pitches better. He's making the guys that you hope to pan out. As I mentioned about panning out, he's a big part, integral part in making sure that these guys develop right. And he's putting the right signs down every night. And when you're not competing, and it's not from being non-competitive, it's just competing every day. When you're getting your head beaten every day, very hard to come to the ballpark and stay focused. I remember seeing Stanton walk from his car to the clubhouse, and now this is all speculation. The look gave off, man, this is tough. That's what the look gave off when he was there. So it has to wear on you when you day in, day out, you're getting beat up. You only win in 60 games. Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? And I've been a victim of that. I've been a victim of saying the wrong things at the wrong times. And we see it all around the sport. I'm up here in New York right now. They're destroying Beckham. But you saying the wrong things at the wrong time, the team's 1-6. Same on the baseball field. Same on the court with LeBron and Lakers. He missed 2 free throws. Well, they're killing them. And it's just tough to consistently stay in that grind mode when you're getting beat up every day. And you feel for guys, but he won't be the last guy in this bad situation like this. So this is when you find out who you're really made of, and you hope that they make the right decision. And that you as a ball player, this is where the business side comes in, and you understand it wholeheartedly, and you say, look, I'm here to play ball, and at the end of the day, when it's time for me to make a major move, then you welcome free agency with open arms.
So I want to follow with you on Yelich in particular, because you talk about having the best outfield in baseball, and I don't think there was any question that that's where they were. And there was so much talk about Stanton, and then I think there was a feeling that they would trade Ozuna. I mean, Loria had tried to trade Ozuna a couple of times, but the Yelich one is the one to me that I just don't get. And I know we had on our baseball pod, Craig had Michael Hill on with him and kind of gave him a chance to sort of give the real reason, which is, what a lot of us have heard, that, that Christian really wasn't happy behind the scenes, and they were a little bit concerned about him kind of as a clubhouse influence going forward. But to give up that kind of talent when it was just on the verge of breaking out, like you'd seen him cross the 20 home run threshold, you knew there was more in there. And then as we saw this year, we don't know what those players are going to turn out to be. Obviously, it wasn't a great start for some of the guys that they got back, even though they have high upside. But what was your feeling about that one trade? Because we've talked a lot about Stanton, but the Yelich trade, in light of the fact that he is an NL MVP candidate.
Well, that was a conversation I had with Jeter, and it was during the 25th anniversary reunion, and we didn't get a chance to really connect, and we were supposed to go to dinner. But that was one of my questions: is why him? And I know it from just our two-minute conversation. He sat down for a minute. He was like, "We'll get back on this one," and we haven't gotten back yet. But I think for me, I'm just like you. Why Yelich? Why? I don't get it. But then you start thinking about and understanding. The Jeter played the game for a long time, a legend in his game. I think if Jeter wasn't a part of the Marlins organization, Yelich would be there, even with new ownership. My point to that is he felt like the road it was going to be, the bumpy road it would be to have a guy that was disgruntled like Yelich was going to be and very vocal would probably be bad for that clubhouse moving forward. It wouldn't grow in the direction they wanted to grow. It wouldn't allow Don Mattingly and coaching staff to be who they need to be. That's just my 2 cents on it. And I felt like he was like, look, this is not a good match. You don't want to be here. I'm going to make sure you're not here. That's just coming from a player's perspective and probably from how Jeter's been obviously in this game for a long time and respected. As you move forward, I don't think Yelich is the player he was this year in the National League East ballparks. Do I think he's a great player? I've said all along he's going to be a batting title champion at some point. Did I think he was going to be this guy? No. My breakdowns on Yelich this year were based on the parks he played in the National League Central. I just believe some of the balls he hit, and I showed America. I said, look, these balls he hit left center in front of the sculpture out there, the balls he hit the dead center, the balls that they were robbing him, and those are all out. My man was making left turns to the dugout at Marlins Park. He goes to Miller Park. He goes to St. Louis. He goes to Chicago, Cincinnati. He turned into a monster. I think they did him a favor. I think he's going to be great. I think he goes up. I think all you can hope for if you're the Marlins, that you got what you got back is going to pan out. I think Brinson is better than he's played. And that's hard. It's easy to come out. Hard for y'all to believe. I get it. I just think he's better than what he's shown. He's trying too hard. He needs to chill a little bit and just play. Forget that they've traded you. Forget that they've put you on, they didn't look at you as being a star. Forget trying to catch Yelich. Just be you. But for Yelich, I think, man, he hit jackpot by going to Milwaukee.
We'll get back to Cliff Floyd here in a second, but first want to tell you about the BetQL app, one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. You can find the BetQL app for free on iTunes if you're Apple or if you're Android. Download it on Google Play. You would not go and bet on the stock market unless you knew something about the stock or the way that the chart had been moving. Why would you do that on sports? Chris, what are some of the things we found on there?
Yeah, all kinds of great information available on BetQL. The app, you download it in the Apple App Store or Google Play. So here's the kind of information that they give you. I'm looking at the NFL window right now. This week, the London game features the Eagles taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sir Blake Bortles back in London, but they believe, BetQL does, that the Philadelphia Eagles are a big-time play here. They have them as 11-point favorites. The current line is 3.5, so they want you to hammer the Eagles. In terms of the data they can provide, they have 66% of the bets right now from the betting public going on the Eagles. In terms of the sharp money, it's even bigger at 85% of the money going on Philadelphia. They don't feel this line can be big enough, and that's the kind of data you can find over at the BetQL app. So again, get to the Apple App Store, get to Google Play, and download the BetQL app today. Want to get to a pair of players who will certainly go a long way towards this rebuild, and they are the Mesa brothers, the Victor and Victor Mesa Jr., who they just signed using that international pool money. They bring him in, and I always kind of felt like this should have been the Marlins' corner. If they're not going to be a team that's into player acquisition via free agency, they should be the ones that are trying to go for ex-Cuban baseball players in this community. You'd endear yourself if you brought in Cespedes and Puig and all these guys that have come over and made an impact. They're now going for it with this new, to me, arcane and circuitous international pool money. But what did you make of those two signings?
So I loved it. I thought it was exactly what you just said, as far as the importance of the community. I mean, you have to make sure that the community is all in, and by having these two involved in the community, you're building something. You're building your brand. You're building the organization. You're showing the community that you are out there fighting to get better every single day. And the community's hard-earned money that they're coming to spend in that stadium. You're getting a chance to relate to the players that are on this team. So it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, you don't stop here. But at the same time, just like that, when you look at the White Sox, whatever you get, whatever you have, it all has to pan out. You can make trades, but what you get back has to pan out. You can't look at these teams as you move forward and think you're going to beat the Houston Astros. No, you're not going to beat the Houston Astros. It's just they're different. But what you have is something you have to build on. I thought, that signing was awesome to see, and I think it's definitely even better when you talk about the community and where they are.
Last one here for Cliff. And Andre Dawson talked about this a little bit on Fish Tank when he was on with OJ. And OJ, obviously, you know him well, and he's kind of a baseball guy at heart, deep down in there somewhere. So they ended up talking a little baseball. They ended up talking a little baseball on the pod. And one thing that came up was African-American players and kind of the sort of the deep dip that we've seen over the past 20 years with a slight comeback recently. You were a multi-sport athlete yourself. How does that change? How do more young kids decide that this is the sport that they want to play?
Well, I think Major League Baseball is doing a really good job of making sure that, you talk about you go out in the communities and you do things that's going to show that baseball is a great sport. I think it's also up to us, not just the current players, but the ex-players, to go out in the communities and show that baseball is a great sport. I think it's important for us to speak about it. Anytime we get opportunity to speak about how great of a sport it is, do you know that it gives you longevity? Do you know, I mean, when you're done with the game, you don't have all these, situations that the NFL is dealing with as far as concussion protocols and changing their sport to make sure that, you can't touch the quarterback. You can't do all these things. We don't have those issues. So, but I think our players that play two sports, and I think the guys who love the game of baseball, you have to consistently talk about it. It's like anything else. If you're not branding, whatever you're doing, then obviously it's probably going to lose its weight. I think that in itself is important. The percentage shouldn't be where it's at. I do believe, as far as keeping African American players visible and showing Mookie Betts more and showing Jackie Bradley Jr. and on down the list, no matter the color, it just matters about just communicating and letting the community know that baseball exists and it's great. And more African Americans are playing it. And also, I think helping to get kids the equipment needed. That in itself, that's one thing that I think's been lost in this whole thing is baseball is expensive. It really is. I mean, you think about, what's needed in baseball, man, it's a lot. Bats, gloves, batting gloves, spikes, it's not cheap. So I think as far as getting more and more equipment out to the kids and having more camps and expressing how, like I said, how great of a game it is going to be huge as far as growing and getting that percentage up to where, we're never comfortable, but you appreciate it.
Got it. Cliff Floyd. Now, Cliff, let us know a little bit, because I know you do a lot of foundation work. What have you had going on lately?
Yeah, man. It's just, the Cliff Floyd Foundation, you can check it out. Check out the website, CFF30. We normally do a bowling tournament every year. This year we did a backpack drive for kids getting back to school. We're going to do a clothes drive, not just, the youth, but also high school, college. I'm going to do 2 scholarships, boy, girl, GPA. I'm going to pick a school to help them as they get ready to go to college. And those are things that I want to direct my attention to more so than one thing in particular. I believe that you can help in different areas. I believe in helping getting kids off the streets and doing things constructively, not just baseball. Maybe you want to be an analyst. Maybe you want to be a coach, being able to assist you in those areas. So those are things that we're trying to move on. And I'm enjoying it. The backpack drive was important for me, man. I didn't know. I was thinking now as I was driving over, I was like, I got an hour for this because life takes over. My son was like, well, how long are you going to be? Because I need you back here because I got football practice. I'm like, okay, give me a minute. Get over there, and it's like amazing. I mean, it's these kids thought they were getting backpacks, just backpacks. They didn't know they were getting supplies. Parents didn't know they were getting supplies. It was amazing to see their faces. And I think the last thing I'll say is when you go outside of your community, it could be, inner city, whatever case may be, it's good to be uncomfortable. And, you don't always have to be comfortable. It was very good for me to be uncomfortable and go do what I did and not know the community I was in. It was awful sunrise out there, and it was great. And when I left, I felt like, you know what? If it's 100, 200, 300, we gave away 500. It don't matter. It's just from the heart, man, and that's all I'm trying to do. So, sometimes I think we get caught up in trying to be too smart for our own good, as opposed to just helping from the heart and keeping it moving.
All right, so definitely check that out. Final thing, real short answer on this: better bowler, you or McDuffie?
Oh, he got me. He got me right now. I was going to say something else, but sometimes you just need to shut up and be like, yep, he got me. He's good.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
It's a good way to go. All right, I'll check him out at We'll check him out at Cliff Floyd 30 on Twitter. Check out the foundation. Hopefully we can visit with you again. And real quick, pick in the series. It's 1-0 as we're talking now. You like the Red Sox? You like the Dodgers?
I'm gonna keep this real quick. I don't think the Dodgers have enough. If the Dodgers lose tonight, this might be a shorter series. I predicted 7. It might go less than 7. I'm predicting the Red Sox.
Red Sox in 5. All right, Cliff Floyd. Check him out at Cliff Floyd 30. We'll talk to you soon.
No doubt. Thank you.
We've got an announcement for you on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We have another watch party. Now, ignore the fact that we are 0-4 in watch parties. We've seen the Dolphins lose twice, the Heat lose, and the Hurricanes lose.
It'll turn around at some point, Ethan.
It'll turn around at some point.
We're going to win one.
Probably not this Thursday night, but Thursday night at Township in Fort Lauderdale. Now, this is a new restaurant. It's right where Riverfront is. It's on the corner of Las Olas and Andrews. If you're familiar with Tilted Kilt, it's in that space, and they've really done a nice job with it. And we've got drink specials, we've got food specials, we've got beer specials, we've got pretzel specials. They got 20% off their great pretzels all night long. And we're going to have giveaways. So we're going to be giving away 5 Reasons hats. We're going to be giving away Miami Heat Beat shirts. We're going to have hosts there. We're going to be giving away Devontae Parker for a conditional 7th-round pick if you get there early enough to give us that 7th-round pick. So come out to Township. We're going to get out there starting at around 7 o'clock. It's going to be a great crowd. They've got big TVs. It's a great space. Hosts from a lot of the different podcasts in our network. We can complain about the Dolphins together, drink, eat, and win free stuff. All right, thank you to Cliff Floyd for fulfilling the baseball portion of the program today. Now we're going to switch over to football to another guy who had a lot of success playing in a uniform down here in South Florida, and that's linebacker John Offerdahl. Today we're going to speak to one of the best linebackers in Dolphins history. You also know him now as the Gridiron Griller. You've probably eaten some of his food over the years down here in South Florida. You can follow him at Gridiron Griller. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler between 1986 and 1993. We have John Offerdahl with us. John, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good to be on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I want to start here with you. We're going to get into the big event that you've got coming up, and I want to talk a little bit about the current team because I know that you still follow it closely. And I want to throw this at you. And again, you were a 5-time Pro Bowler in 8 seasons and a 2-time All-Pro. Since Zach Thomas was drafted in 96 in the 5th round, the Dolphins have drafted 26 linebackers, and none of them have made the Pro Bowl since Zach. What has?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing stat. What has happened at that position, in your opinion? Because I feel like they've gotten a lot of other things right on the defense, but they have not been able to find playmaking linebackers the past few years.
Yeah, now, so I'm going to ask you a question. Does that include outside linebackers?
It includes everything, actually. It even includes a couple of guys like Olivier Vernon, who didn't make a Pro Bowl, but he was drafted as an outside linebacker and obviously played at end a lot for the Dolphins before the Giants plucked him away. But yeah, none of the 26 they've drafted 26 guys during that period of time, and none of them have made a Pro Bowl. So we've been looking for a playmaker like you. Well, it's not the kind of research I want to do, John. I'll be honest. I wish it was better.
Well, we probably haven't gone to the playoffs too many times. Probably twice since that came alive. Also, so maybe there's a correlation between linebackers and playoffs.
Let's be straight on that. Like that is obviously. I mean, I know it doesn't get talked about like say pass rushing defensive end gets talked about, or left tackle, or quarterback, or corner, but linebackers matter. Are they looking for the wrong things, in your opinion?
First of all, you make a great point. I'd love to do some research on that across the league and see if there is a correlation between playoffs and linebackers, outside, inside, Pro Bowl players, and see if there's a correlation. But typically when you win and you go to the playoffs, you have good players and they get noticed. And so oftentimes that correlation is then they get onto the Pro Bowl. For the Dolphins, between myself and Zach, and you're probably left with scratching your head for some additional inside linebackers, I think Kiko, he's a playmaker. He's aggressive. I love how he plays. But, that defense at times can be porous and at times can catch blocks instead of attack the blocks. So, the question's still out on our defense as it is on our team. But I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want to see the Mike Singletary type, the Zach Thomas type, the leader of the defense, be the signal caller and the linebacker that's between the D-backs and the front line. I mean, to me, that's the quarterback. And just like on offense, you're leaning towards who's going to play quarterback because he's going to carry the team. To some extent, you want a leader in the linebacker core that carries the team. Even if he's not the best player on defense, you want to look at that person and say he's the leader of the defense.
When you look at those two young players in McMillan and Baker, what do you see?
Yeah, they're young. It's not easy to be a leader when you're a first or second year player. So I think they can grow into that role. I think they can grow into being a great player. I haven't seen a lot of it this year, but again, I think there's the challenges of the defense and, the challenges of the team kind of wrap that bundle together and leave them in a place of development. So, I don't want to be too negative because they're a 4-3 team. They're a team that can give you hope and then give you despair week to week. So I still like to think that they're on solid ground with their coach and the framework. I just think they're young and need development, and they have challenges in key positions that make NFL teams great. Quarterbacks, receivers, big plays they can do, but they're not day-to-day a dominant team.
I want to ask you sort of a more philosophical football question because we've seen that the Dolphins put their 9th player on injured reserve so far this season. Last year they had, I think, 19, although most of them were after this point in the year. When you see a lot of guys getting hurt, is the first thing you think, okay, that's just bad luck, things happen? Or does you start to question whether or not if a team is having a rash of injuries, maybe it's something on the training side or something else that's happening there that's leading to so many injuries at once?
Yeah, so is 9 above the norm at this time of the
Well, it's above the norm for them the past few years. I did a little research on that. Now the Patriots have 10, but as always with the Patriots, it doesn't seem to be any of their key players. It's a lot of guys who got hurt in camp. There's 2 that really were contributors, whereas the Dolphins have lost, by my count, 6 guys that they were counting on. Whether it was William Hayes or now Albert Wilson, 2 guys on the offensive line, and Sitton and Kilgore that they were counting on. Like they've lost like key players. And so it's always interesting to me because we always talk about and you had to play in the heat and you didn't have a bubble like they have now. And so
we had 3 a days.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised it was just 3 a days with Shula. Like I would assume it would have been 12 a days. So we talk about correlation, John. Is there any, in your view, correlation to the way guys are training, working out, or is this just this stuff just happens? That's just football.
Yeah. So I have been fascinated by the trend of the NFL and how it prepares its players for live game day action. And what's happened over the years, as there's been less and less contact in practice, less and less practice time, and the athletes have been left somewhat to themselves to be personally in shape and in condition for game. But physical condition is different than kind of like aerobic condition. And, I'm just amazed because I went through with Shula very hard practices. I played practices like they were games to the detriment, I believe, of my career. When I went into the game, there were days and weeks that I was like exhausted from being in the heat of South Florida during the week. And, now I'm going into the game feeling like fatigued and tired. But I have to admit that I was body ready, body conditioned for a physical kind of warlike environment. These days, you don't get that except game day. And I struggle to understand how people can be game ready without having conditioned their body through camp and through practice for that game type environment. When I played, for the most part, there weren't all those rules about tackling, and there was clearly a spearing rule, which I never got. I never got one penalty in my entire career except for a holding penalty on a tight end that ran into me when he was running his pattern. So I couldn't believe that. But anyways, I never got a penalty.
Wait a second. Wait.
Not one penalty in your entire career. You got one penalty and you remember the exact instance.
Oh, absolutely. I got one penalty. Well, first of all, so I'm not going to get an offsides call because they never blitzed me. So what other kind of penalty would I have? Like a hands to the face or a cheap shot or a spearing? But I never did because I was a clean tackler. The only type of penalty you could get me is pass interference, and I only had one of those when the guy ran into me. Those darn tight ends. Anyways, so, you know, nowadays, it just frustrates me when I see a good, solid tackle, and that's unnecessary roughness or spearing or targeting, or it just irks me because I think it's like there's an element of wussification in this league that, I mean, it's like going to the MMA and saying, you know, you can't kick somebody. Well, that's what makes the MMA what it is. The NFL's not a bloodthirsty sport from a spearing standpoint, but my gosh, there's 300-pound people trying to put me on my back. There's no way I'm going to be able to be sensitive and gentle with a 300-pounder and then seconds later have to pull back and be gentle to a quarterback. It's just too hard. So, I don't know. Did that answer your question in a roundabout way?
Well, it gave me some research to do.
Hopefully you got a lot to do.
The first thing I'm going to research is when that penalty occurred. I don't know. I still have the records of that. Do you remember who it was against? Who ran into you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was a New England tight end. Bledsoe was the quarterback. I remember very well. He ran right up, kind of a seam route. And I was just standing there in the seam. He ran into me. I was like, damn, the guy just ran into me. I couldn't believe it. And then all of a sudden I see a penalty flag. And they said that I caused, pass interference. And I was like, oh, man, I am out of position. I was really irked about that because I had a clear record for a while. I was going to go the whole career without a penalty. You probably can't believe it because I kind of played a reckless type of a game. But I could actually – I could control myself, like a sideline hit and things like that. I felt very comfortable controlling myself and not getting those type of penalties.
That's amazing. But we had Richmond Webb on with us for an episode, and he remembered exactly how many sacks he'd given up to Bruce Smith, 2.5, I believe. So I know guys remember this stuff through the years. We also asked Richmond something that I wanted to ask you. You talked about the way the game has changed. Obviously, you played with Danny, not in the 84 season, but obviously he was still playing at a pretty damn high level when you came in at 86. How many yards would he throw for? What's your number? How many yards would he throw for with the current rules in a single season?
Great question. So it would be totally different from the standpoint of sacks, intimidation from D linemen, pass, defense, not being able to put their hands on them, and most importantly, the ability for receivers to catch the ball without fear of getting their head ripped off, and in a nice way, okay? By a
in a nice way.
I mean, those things make a difference. So a receiver can come across the middle, and really the only intimidation and in a nice way the defense had with those receivers coming across the middle is they had to keep their head on a swivel. Now they can kind of focus on the ball and be prepared to catch it without even being touched almost until, they catch the ball and put a foot on the ground. So for Dan, I think those would have made major differences. And not so much for Dan, but for the receivers. And obviously the receivers would then effectively catch more balls and thereby through the transitive property, Dan would have been a much better yardage and touchdown quarterback, which at the time he was the number one best quarterback ever.
Before we get to your event, I want to ask you, we had Udonis Haslam on our pod, and we talked to him about some of the business opportunities that he's looked into now. He's gotten involved with Subway and a bunch of other ventures, and I know Jamal Mashburn did when he was with the Heat, and he's had a lot of success with that afterwards. What, in your view, is the key for an athlete making a transition to business?
Yeah, so, I guess I was on the front end of, certainly taking the platform that football provided me and kind of segueing that into a career. My wife and I started our business. We started a bagel business in 1990, and I retired in 1993. So about halfway through my career, we actually started an alternative career that ended up, flourishing and being very instrumental in my transition from football to life for the rest of my life. I do think there's a huge value in starting that process while you're still playing, because that platform lasts in its prime for the time you play. And then once you become a past player and alumni, that platform diminishes quickly unless you have a reason. A lot of players go into public speaking or into the media, but they lose an opportunity to transition that platform into a second career that can help them for the rest of their lives. So it's not easy though. And, these days with the additional focus and payment of your performance, you better get the first thing right, the football thing. So when you start diverting your thought and your time and attention towards a second career while you're playing football, you better get the football thing right. I would encourage players, especially in the off season, to start working. And it's not easy when you're making millions of dollars to start, picking up trades or different interests in that moment. Even though you do have time, you have a season coming up and you want to prepare for that. Not an easy thing to do. And a lot of the players justifiably feel like they want to relax and enjoy that time because it's fleeting and the season comes quick. So it's not an easy thing to do to prepare players for life after football. From a financial standpoint, from a career standpoint, they're in the prime of their life and they think it'll never end, which, as we know, it does. But I would encourage anybody to pick up a second career talent as soon as possible and start building your life outside of just your football brand.
John, tell us about the event that's coming up. It is the Walgreens Gridiron Grilloff Food, Wine, and Music Festival. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so 9 years ago, my wife and I started a food and wine festival in a parking lot. And over the last 9 years, with an amazing base of sponsors and all of the volunteers, from legendary football players to unbelievably talented chefs, we built a property called this year the Walgreens Gridiron Grilloff Food, Wine, and Music Festival that ends up being a 3-day festival on the Pompano Beach Amphitheater and Park the second weekend of November. That's November 9th through the 12th. That just brings, quite honestly, football and food together off the grill. And so we do a high-end food and wine festival on Saturday the 9th. We also, at that same time, bring in 30 pitmaster barbecues to compete for $10,000 in the Gridiron Grilloff barbecue competition. Sunday, we bring in cornhole, kind of pairs up with football. And all of us athletes can play cornhole. Honestly, anybody can play cornhole. So that's one of the few competitive things that it doesn't really have a barrier of age or talent. So on Sunday, we actually have the American Cornhole League tournament with a $10,000 prize also. Concerts Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. All of this stuff makes for a great weekend, and 100% of the proceeds go to our foundation, the Handoff Foundation, and that foundation feeds the needs of those in crisis, foster care, family homelessness, and supportive housing. So it's a lot there. The easiest way is just to go to gridirongrilloff.com, take a look at the tickets, just see the excitement, the support from the community and the companies and corporations in the community like Toyota and Southern Wine and UPS, and we have such great support, and ultimately it's a celebration where celebrity, competition, and charity collide. How's that? Does that excite you? Are you ready to go?
That is, we're fired up. We have a watch party that Sunday for Dolphins Packers, but I think I might head out there on Saturday. You're right about cornhole, that anybody can beat you, because my 4-year-old, we have it in the backyard, and she beat me. And she beats me, and then does her genius dance after she beats me.
Yeah.
That she beat Daddy. So anybody could do it. Now we need to get one thing from you here before. Well, two things. Okay, so I'm going to ask you these two things quickly. The first is, do you have one grilling tip? Because for somebody like me that is just terrible around the kitchen, outside, well, just terrible everywhere, essentially. I've tried to do some grilling. It's doesn't go great most of the time. Is there one tip that you give novice grillers like myself so we don't embarrass ourselves when we have company?
Yeah, I mean, I can come up with a couple tips. You ready for this? Have you ever heard of the 444 rule?
I have not.
So there's 400 degrees is typically a grilling temperature. It's medium, high. And it's a good place to kind of start many foods. So to get that temperature on a grill, nowadays they got temperature gauges and all that stuff. But if you really do it the linebacker way, there's always a bit of injury potential. And that's actually part of the fun. So you wouldn't look for safety coming from me. So I put my little fingers, 4 of them actually, and I put them kind of on top of the grill. That's kind of hot. You can singe your hair on your fingers. But if you put them on top, four fingers high, so you measure that out with your hand. Be careful, don't burn it. And then for, let's see here, and you can hold it there for 4 seconds before it says, ouch, that's awfully hot. That's about 400 degrees. What do you think? You like that one?
You're burning me, John. Seriously.
No, I caution all kids under 18 and, toddlers, don't do that. But for grown-ups my age who've, not afraid of, putting your body at risk a little bit, it's kind of a fun one.
Yeah, not for 45-year-old idiots.
I like
it. You just want me to burn the house down, Chris. Here's our last one. Here's our last one for you. And everybody should check out the event. Again, we're going to promote it on our Twitter account at 5 Reasons Sports. Also follow him at Gridiron Griller. Last one for you. Your last season was O.J. McDuffie's first season. He's now a host in our network with Fish Tank with Seth Levitt. One question for you, because I have a feeling about this. How cocky was OJ when he was drafted? How cocky? Did you haze him at all?
Gosh, I'm not going to be a great answer on this one because I like OJ, and I would never say he was cocky. He might have been a little overconfident. How's that? But he backed it up with his play, and I think he was one of Dan's favorite receivers. I mean, Dan had Duper and Clayton and Nat Moore and Jim Jensen and all those traits. But towards the end of his career, I just know he had a high amount of respect. I only had 1 year with OJ, and that year was a diminishing year for me. I mean, I just kind of fizzled out of the league. And that was his year of kind of establishing himself. To my detriment, I probably wasn't more of an impact in his life. I just have the highest respect for him. So if you were looking for me to throw him under the carpet or into the turf,
or into the grill
one on me.
Yeah, no.
I throw him under the grill. I like that. I probably could do that.
All right,
you're good.
All right, John Offerdahl. Well, I don't know how good I am. We'll see how good a griller I am and how good I am at Cordell. John Offerdahl, check it out. Second weekend of November, going to be there in Pompano. We'll post it up on our site and at 5 Reasons Sports. Everybody can check that out. John, really appreciate the time today.
Awesome. Great job, guys.